Welcome to the first class of Middle Toad University. And just to give you a little background, I know a lot of smart people who are kind of struggling right now in their professions and their chosen careers. And I really enjoy what I do. I think most people I know who do this really enjoy it, and we all make pretty decent money too. So I wanted to kind of share what we know in hopes that maybe one or two or maybe all of you decide to start a new career in it. So really quickly, what we're going to go over today is kind of some really basic stuff about how to learn. And that might sound kind of condescending, but it really is something that you need to know how to do, because a lot of web development is not just figuring stuff out, but seeing what's already been done, finding stuff. Quantum rule of web development, I think that came from Robbie on staff here, is essentially if you're trying to do something, it's probably already been done. So go out there and find it. There's no use reinventing the wheel for everything. You know, you don't have to design what a window and a scroll bar looks like. Those are built in. You just use them. So anyway, moving forward, I'd like to get away from Facebook. It's fun for social stuff, but Google Plus is a little more tech-oriented, and it has some features that I think will really benefit us, like Google Docs and the Google Hangouts and the communities and stuff. So I'd really like everybody to get on Google Plus if you can when you get home, and just add me, and I'll make sure you get all the notices from there. If you could also send me your phone number, just in case I need to send out a text, like class is canceled or something like that, or moved. It'd be good to have a backup way to get a hold of you, because I know not all of us are online 24/7 like I am. So that's why I wanted to teach this class, and that's what I need you to do to kind of keep involved. Now we'll just kind of start getting into stuff. I'm going to keep this really casual, so if you have questions, just shout them out. If you ask too many, I'll tell you. So first off, I'm in Chrome. Chrome is a WebKit browser, and when I say WebKit, there's actually a engine that runs the Chrome browser that also runs the Safari browser, and that's called WebKit. Both companies, Google and Apple, both contribute to that, and so there's a lot of shared code that's going on. Most of the time when you develop a site, something will look exactly the same in Safari and Chrome. WebKit, there's Chrome, Safari, or WebKit. You have Firefox, which is Mozilla, comes all the way back from Netscape. And then there's Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer sucks, and you'll hear that constantly from web developers, because it's just a pain in the ass. They like to do things. They've gotten a lot better over the years, but early on in the web, when everybody else was trying to come to standards, Microsoft would say, oh, here's a standard, and just throw something out, and it'd be completely out of left field. So you have to do things completely different for some of the old IE browsers. It's getting a little better in that IE 10 is almost completely standards compliant, but there's still issues. You know, that's something we'll investigate as we develop some of these sites. So I'm using Chrome. I like Chrome a little more than Safari right now, just because Safari changed its dev tools a little, and I'm a little more comfortable on Chrome. One thing about Chrome is you can search right in the search bar. So let's take a look here. If we search for Muppets, we get Muppets. That's an easy one. If we search for Muppets in space, we get that. That's easy. So these are really stupid, basic searches. Anybody think of a good quote offhand?
He who wraps himself in the flag.
So, he who wraps himself in the flag. All right, so nothing coming up right away. You get this. Now, if we add quotation marks to this, The difference is that this will look for this exact string in that order. So this comes in really handy when you're looking for something like a random error message. It says error 204 404 can't find page, something like that. Typing in the whole string will get you all sorts of results. Some will match error, some will match 404, some will match page. If you type it in quotes, it matches that exact sentence all the way through. So that's a really good way to narrow your searches down. And pardon me if you guys are already hip to this, but a lot of people don't know this. So let's say we want to find out about the person who created Pandora's box. We want to find out about Pandora. If we just type in Pandora, we are going to get all sorts of stuff about internet radio. You know, depending on what you're searching for, that can be kind of frustrating to search through 5 pages of Pandora radio when you want to find out about the myth. So you can add a minus and remove radio. Then you only get Pandora minus anything that includes radio. So those are just a couple quick tricks to kind of focus you in on Googling.
With multiple strings, like if there's like
Yep.
5 things you know are going to show up, you can do mine. All right. Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great way to narrow down your searches and really find what you're looking for.
You have to add a minus each time, or is it minus?
It is a minus each time for the syntax. Yeah. So what was it? Oh yeah, good call. So there you go. Now it'll show you shoes. So might take a while to get to the first Greek or the first woman. Yeah.
Why can't you just type in Pandora's box? Who created Pandora's box?
Because this is an example that I'm giving.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
He did. That is a better search.
You're right. That is a better search, but yeah, bad example. All right, so that's kind of a couple things I want to throw out about searching on Google.
Is there a name for that kind of search? Is that called Boolean?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, is that called Boolean? No. Boolean is true or false.
It's just a search with parameters.
Yeah, with operands. Yeah. Operands are things in mathematical equations. When you do 1 + 1, the plus is the operand. It's what's operating on the numbers. You can think of it like that. And by all means, feel free to stop me if I say any words or acronyms that you don't recognize. You know, I've been doing this a while, so it's sometimes easy for me to gloss those things over. Another good thing is to identify which types of learning you're good at. I personally do not do well in a class setting. I can't stand listening to somebody talk. I wouldn't be here right now because I like to do things at my own pace. I like to really get in and do it. I like books because I can burn through a book super quick and just get through it. Tutorials are nice. You know, it's just step by step how to do something. I kind of like those because I can just kind of skim them and get all the meat out of them. There's what I like to call hack and smash, and that's just hacking away at code, figuring it out yourself. That is a great way to learn. It can be a little slower than some of the other ways. So identifying what works for you is definitely important, and I encourage you to think about that a little. One step at a time. This is talking about ways to break things down. So let's say we need to make a table, and that table needs to have 20 rows of data and a header item. Rather than trying to think about how you're going to build the entire set, just start at one thing. I'm going to build a cell that contains my header. This is
When you say table, you mean like an Excel document, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Glossing over already.
I'm here for you.
I appreciate it. So you can take complex things like Google Documents. I imagine they probably started, well, we're going to need a place to set the title. Here's a title. We're going to need a menu bar. You know, they just break things down. We're going to need a file menu. There's going to have to be a share button. They just break things down into smaller and smaller increments. that you're able to tackle. You know, creating something like creating something like a website can be kind of intimidating, but once you break it down into the component parts, it's really not that. We already talked about the quantum rule of web development. If you can think about it, it's probably already been done. So look around. Taking a break and coming at it from another angle. This is something that, you know, working with code can sometimes be frustrating. You're doing something that, from what you can see, should be working, but it's not. You've been hacking at it. You've done searching. You just don't know what's going on. Take a break. Come back. I did this just the other day. I was frustrated as hell. Took a break. Played a game of foosball. Came back, and I had a freaking quotation mark missing that was really freaking obvious. And that's just all I needed to do was take a break and walk away. Isolating the issue is definitely like one step at a time. I think we pretty much already covered that. Rubber Ducky.
This is my favorite.
Yeah. So there's this theory that sometimes to solve your problems, you just need to talk it out. And I forget how the story goes, but one guy would constantly be talking to other people and solving all his own problems as he was talking to them. I actually had a client at one of my jobs who would call me up and yak for 5 minutes, and at the end of the call, every single time, he'd say, well, yeah, no, I get it, never mind, I guess I don't need your help. And I finally just stopped answering his phone calls, and he would solve his own problems on my voicemail all the time. So the Rubber Ducky is, one developer finally put a Rubber Ducky on his desk, and he would actually sit there and have conversations with the Rubber Ducky just to talk it through in his mind. It sounds silly, but I swear by it. It works.
I would totally agree with that.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll totally grab people around the office during the day, and I'm like, I need 5 minutes of your time. I just need to tell you why this doesn't work. By the time I'm done, I figured it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 95% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Did that yesterday with Chris.
Yep.
Yeah. Or the inanimate object works too. I have one of them. The literal one.
Yeah.
Going back to the quantum rule,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean taking sections of code from other places that are doing something you want to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But also looking for like plugins that you can just install that will do what you want to do. You know, anything that's already been done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Is there any way to know like when you're not supposed to like use someone like are there like rules on like when you can use someone else's code or?
That's a great question. The web is very, very open. In fact, I can go here. I'm on Google Docs. I can right-click somewhere, hopefully, maybe. And I can inspect the element. All of a sudden, I'm looking at all of their HTML code right there. And nothing is stopping me from copying this. There are people who put disclaimers in their code and say, hey, if you use this on your site, include this little comment in your code in case somebody looks at it. You know, I get some credit for it. That's perfectly fine. And there,
hidden in the element.
some people put little we call them tombstones. You know, you just this was created by blah 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 on blah 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 and blah blah blah. If you use this in your code, please leave this intact. That kind of thing.
Just in the code, so it's just there for other developers.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are pieces of web pages that you can't see by default. That's the server-side code, and I'll get into that a little bit, but just briefly, it's not code that's running in your browser. It's code that's already been run on the server. So you don't have access to the server. You only have access to what the server has sent you. So you don't necessarily know what happened on the server. So server-side code is often closed. But, there's lots and lots of open source stuff. We do all our stuff here open source. It's all mostly PHP based with some Python.
Yes.
Yep, a little bit of JavaScript here and there. Yeah, just a little bit. But for the most part, the web is very open, at least how I plan to teach this class and teach you what to do.
What's
If you
PHP stand for?
PHP stands for something else now. It actually originated as personal homepage. Some guy decided that the languages that were available to him weren't serving his need. Stands for It is now said to stand for. Damn it.
That's right there.
Did I miss it?
PHP hypertext processor.
Oh.
Huh.
Hypertext.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a recursive acronym. That's a geek term. It's a recursive acronym because the acronym contains one of the letters, and I don't know. Geeks can be weird.
As a general rule, with web stuff, if you want to use the code, if you can access it, you can probably use it. You'll get into later on more advanced topics where you maybe go out to GitHub to look for somebody's code, and they may have a license on it. And if it's, if it's an open source license, you can generally use it. If it's closed source, they may have it up there public for some reason, but most stuff that they want you to pay for or license is going to say that really clearly.
And to be sure, there's plenty of closed source software. If you guys want to get into a Microsoft shop and do Microsoft application development, that's all closed source. They don't even release the source to the engine. So basically, you work on their platform and send stuff to their engine, which is closed, and it spits stuff out.
But you're going to have to pay for it to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not likely to accidentally use somebody's code without being able to.
Yep.
What if you were to intentionally use somebody else's code that you were supposed to? Is there ways to do
Don't
that?
get caught.
Yeah, I mean, people do that all the time too. One problem on the internet is people often reuse assets like images. Like you hear stories of people who find their own pictures on random websites and stuff because they just go on Facebook and lift them off, So yeah, that's actually more of an issue than code theft. Yeah, and really, if you're writing a piece of code that you plan to sell, not sure that this class will get you started in that direction. I don't know how I feel about that personally. It's the concept of open source is that we're all working to make the source code better. So if you're benefiting from everybody else helping, the GPL actually states that you can't necessarily take that and make money off of it and not release it back to the place. One thing people will do is they'll have the source code open and free, but the compiled version, the version that's made into like machine code and all optimized to run on your site, they'll charge you a license to use that. But if you want to download it and try to compile it and create it all yourself, go to town. You'll see that model a lot.
I have two questions. So the how like on so if I was on a normal website, not on Google Chrome, is there like a way to? Do you need a certain program to access the code? Like
nope. Every single browser. I'll pull up Firefox here as an example. Every single browser can look at the source code.
Oh really?
Yep. It's just a matter of because your browser has to know what to do, and the source code are instructions on what to do. Where's view source in Firefox?
I think you can right click to get it.
So, inspect element. You can go right in here.
Oh.
This actually has a neat. Firefox has a neat little inspector. If you really want to get an idea of how a web page is built. This is a 3D view. What?
That's so cool.
What? So essentially, you have layers of pages. Here are like different buttons on top of stuff. These are just containers that contain
that
this
like a
button and this
normal-
logo.
Is that like a normal like that? Is that a really advanced website or just?
Google is pretty darn simple. Let's go ahead and open up.
They're forward-facing stuff.
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
Firefox
exactly.
have that for everything? Like you can do the.
Yep.
3D?
So we go to metaltoad.com. This is our site. And you can see how we built that.
Sorry, one more time, please.
So essentially what this is doing is showing us the structure of this document. There's a section here. There's a section here that's holding this graphic. There's a section here that's holding the headline. Here's a logo on top of that with the headline on top of that. Here's a navigation bar that's holding the navigation. Here are the separate buttons within that navigation.
And then I had another question.
What's that?
GPL. What does that stand for?
General Public License, I believe, is GPL. Yeah. And that's most of what most open source is released under that or an MIT license, which is slightly different, but it's basically, you know, free to use. Basically, if you're using free software, don't turn around and try to sell it to people unless you really, really know what you're doing and you're really following the letters of the law.
Where do you pull down to get elements? Again,
Just right click. Google Chrome. Yeah, not on a Google site. Sites do have the ability to change what you're looking at with your right click. So some sites like Google Chrome, they need to have an actual contextual menu that fits for them. So inspect element right here.
Okay.
You can also just, you know, view the page source and see what the code looks like. Is that intimidating? Yeah, this is.
It is because Drupal throws so much crap in
Yeah, exactly.
So did somebody type all of that?
Did somebody type all of that? Somebody at least copied and pasted all that, yes.
there. At some point.
There was probably actually very little typed in there, you know?
Probably not the dev who made the site.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me go back to my document here. Is this a QuickTime recording making my computer slow here?
Google Hangout, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's my daughter.
There's a person.
Dan, I found if you've got the Hangout open in a tab, it can be really slow.
Wow, this is
I
like
opened it in like
frozen
There's
here.
a person on your little thing.
Oh, Maylene's chatting us. Hi, your chat is visible to everybody, Maylene. Oh, I'm on Remix? Okay, I'm going to put you off to the side here, actually a little off screen, so maybe that'll help my computer deal with it a little bit. I have a theory that if it's not rendering it on screen, it's not using as many resources. That's just a theory.
See it's not there.
Well, I mean, really, the computer only is worried about what's on screen. It's worried about what it has to redraw. If it's off screen, it knows it doesn't have to draw that, so
It's on an unused tab.
I'm 85% sure that it's using less resources that way. So writing it down, this sounds silly too, but sometimes I do this a lot when I run into math problems. Like sometimes I pick up a pen and paper and just start writing it down. One thing I do in meetings is I'm not the best note taker, but if there's something I need to remember, I write it down, period. Writing it down, I think, really helps you commit it to memory.
Evernote free.
Yep. Evernote is an awesome app here. We'll have a whole section on tools, but here's Evernote. Basically, you can download this application for your computer. You can download it on your phone, and wherever you make a note, it's always synced everywhere else on all your devices.
And
So
you can share on Facebook and Twitter.
right, yep, you can share, you can tag stuff for easy finding. Atlas, this is Evernote.
And you can share with
Can I get
other
that
Evernote
on mine?
users. So
Not sure. What?
you can share with other Evernote users too.
You have to know.
Oh,
what
awesome.
version.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
pretty
can only invite
Mm-hmm.
people to. You can invite people to get into particular folders. You can
Yep.
invite people to. But it is not public.
Right. I store about 30% of all of my memories in Evernote.
Yeah, I actually just found Evernote. I'm kind of late to that party.
Using it a long time.
Yeah, you have.
Hey Dan, do you think it'd be helpful if we did it like a step back real quick and went around the room and sort of talked about people like on a scale of like what people know or what they're interested in doing? Or you feel like
I was actually going to do that right before the professions. Let me
Okay.
get through these last couple
Alright.
bullet points. So CodePen, JS Fiddle, Gist. These are. I'm sorry.
Also Dablet.
Oh, Dablet's awesome too.
I love Dablet.
They all kind of do the same thing. So CodePen. What? The hell am I doing here? How come I can't find CodePen? What?
CodePen.io.
.io, right. How did I know that? All right, so we're going to do a new pen here. We have HTML here, CSS here, JavaScript here. I'm going to do something just really simple. This is an A tag, which stands for anchor, and it's essentially how you build all of your links. So I have to enter in the HTTP :// because this isn't on my server. We'll talk about those different kinds of URLs later on. There are some other attributes that you can give, like a title. This is what will show up in a pop-up. And we close off that tag, and we'll write click me. And then we do a closing A tag, and a closing tag starts with a slash. So we have our click me text wrapped in a link. Down here, you see our link show up. Over here in CSS, I'll do a small declaration. Basically, I'm saying that all A tags will have every property between these brackets. Let's give it a funky background. Oops. I'm actually amazed I've been typing so well. Usually I'd be screwing this up. I'm going to pick some random RGBA numbers that stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha means transparency. So we'll actually give it a little bit of transparency too. I have no idea what color this is going to be.
That's weird. Oh yeah. That's pretty weird.
Okay, 30 is too much. Let's go 10. No? Oh, whatever. Now we can't see the text, but we can...
Your text color is also blue.
Yeah, we can fix that. And that's just color. We'll make it white. There are some primary colors that are named too, so you can just do that. White. And let's say the underline's bugging you. It bugs me. Text decoration, none. Oops. And now let's do something where when you hover over it, it changes. God damn it.
Everyone close your eyes.
Okay, open them. And we'll make the color black. That's all there is to it. We just wrote code. And
Why is that under style sheet?
I'm sorry?
Why is that under CSS?
Okay, so HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. This is how we mark up all our stuff. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. We'll get into cascading later, but the important part is style sheets. So you were asking why this is under style sheet?
Right.
Um,
That's where it talks about colors.
Right, because one of the goals of development is to separate your presentation logic from your data, and also, I'll see, am I getting that right? Your application logic, your styling, and your data should all be separate. That means if your data changes, you don't have to change everything else. If your application changes, you don't have to reskin everything. If you want to change the colors, you can change the colors without affecting the programming or the data. So that's why we separate these out. There is a way to do inline styling,
Don't show them that.
but it's not good.
This is something you should never need.
Don't do this.
We just spent 10 years getting rid of that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason that's bad is because you now have your styling coupled with your HTML, with your application, or with your markup, your presentation layer. And that makes it hard, first of all, if you need to change anything. It also makes it harder because of the cascading nature of style sheets. None of these can overwrite a style that's been written here, because a style that's inline takes precedence over everything. So don't do that.
A lot of times what will happen is your HTML is output by an automated system, or it's coming from a database, and you don't want to have to go dig into your logic of why things are sorted this way and why you're only
Maybe just to kind
Nothing
of.
looks good.
Or if you
Why
have
is the
30 of
code
those,
thing showing up down here?
and each of them has a style connected to it, you have to go through and copy and paste.
Earlier I
it.
did the same thing that you did.
Or
I
you
did
can
how
go over
I-
there and change color to green, and you're done.
We're
That's
not sure,
that's
buddy.
where you really
Okay.
feel like,
I think 2 points
Is
too
this
that
free?
might kind of like make it seem a little bit easier to grasp. Like, you know, HTML is going to be more like, you know, your foundations. It's going to set the where stuff generally is on your page versus, you know, CSS is going to be, all right, how does it look? What color is it? What's the background? You know, things like that. Versus JavaScript, which is going to be doing stuff, you know, moving things around. If this, do that, else do this. You know, and that's kind of where you get into the division. And you know, part of the thing that like Dan was saying is nice is when you keep those things separated, you know, like the presentation versus the, you know, the code, even as you get into like, if you were in a bigger company, you know, you could even have some division of teams. You know, you could have front-end people, you know, versus people that deal more with back-end stuff. And, you know, we have some of that at Metaltoad. You know, Dan does primarily, you know, front-end stuff, though he also does a lot of, you know, back-end stuff too. And then there's, you know, people like myself who do more, you know, back-end. And it just kind of helps with the division of teams and coordinating people.
So this is just an example of tools that are available for you to do really simple stuff. So, let me show off this JS function I just wrote. I said for every object, that's an A, every time I click it, run this function. So I click it, and it doesn't do anything. Damn it. Do you know if they
I'm not sure if they include jQuery, but
yeah, strange. Why wouldn't they do that?
You can edit in the gear thing up in the upper right.
Oh.
coffee script.
Wow, wow. Somebody's used this before. All right, so students, he's winning so far. So notice when I roll over it, not only does it change color, but it shows the title pop-up. So when I click that, it says, check me out, I'm funky, which is the alert that I told it to do here. So this is really how easy writing code is for the web. It's really not that intimidating when you break it down into very, very small parts. Granted, there's a lot to know. There's a lot of random things that eventually you'll commit to memory, but you'll probably be looking up all the time for a long time. That's why being able to Google is really important. I don't know a lot of people who commit entire programming languages to memory. It's just that's a lot of stuff to do.
You don't have to know it all, you just have to know where to find it.
Exactly. So RSS feeds. If you take a look right here, I've got an RSS feed reader, and what this does is tell me when any of my favorite sites have added a new article. So what's a good is WebMonkey still around?
I like Google Reader personally. It's my favorite.
Yeah, Google Reader is very good because it's
It
kind of,
also syncs to my phone,
yeah, exactly, synced on the phone.
so I can read it on the bus.
So on websites, you'll find little RSS icons. And you'll also notice my little RSS icon added a little green thing. You click on this, and depending on what programs you have to use RSS, it'll say something like, you know, add this to your feed. So I say, add that WebMonkey RSS feed, follow. And so now, anytime this page, WebMonkey, which is about web development, changes or adds a new article, I get a list. So I don't have to, you know, rely on constantly searching for new articles to stay on top of stuff. I get notified anytime there's a new article, and I just read it.
Does it also delete the ones that you have read already?
It marks them as read. I can still get back to them, or at least the last 10 in this app. All right, so that's RSS feeds. Very good way to stay on top of stuff. Meetups. This is something that you guys are really lucky in that you're in a very tech-savvy city. there are meetups for everything. In fact, I go to, my wife will attest to this, I go to at least 3 meetups a month, and those are all specifically on the Drupal content management system. Those aren't even like generic web development or JavaScript or anything like that. So if talks are good for you, meetups are great because often people come with presentations and say, hey, this is how I did this kick-ass thing. Check it out. I'll walk you through it. So I definitely encourage you to do that. I think there's a site called meetup.com, and it has like just a whole bunch of meetups listed on it, and you can figure out what works good for you or not.
It's one of the oldest things
Yeah?
on the web, yeah.
Wow.
LinkedIn's good for that too.
Yeah, that's right. LinkedIn has events like that too. You can also join groups in LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just get notified of all sorts of stuff. And let me tell you, I'll get to that later. Mentoring. A lot of web people I know are like me and are really eager to help people. I mean, when I told people I was doing this, I mean, I had volunteers coming out of the woodwork. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people out of the people in this room are here to help you guys. So feel free to ping people who are in your peer group with problems you're having or ways to approach stuff. We have Tony as our director of development. Even though I'm a lead developer and I've been doing it a long time, I still go to him with my ideas and I say, hey, this is how I'm planning on attacking this. I'm going to do this, this, and this. What do you think about that? And I encourage you guys to do the same. So types of web dev professions. This is something I wanted to talk to you guys about because it's really not limited to just developing. Like we heard there, I do front-end development. He does back-end. We have project manager. We have a guy doing project management and media relations for us. And these are just some types of web dev professions, and I'll just go over them pretty briefly. So a web designer actually uses stuff like Photoshop and Illustrator to create the designs that you look at. Oftentimes, they don't need to know a lick of code, but really to be a good web designer, you need to understand how code works with your designs so you can make sure that your designs are actually feasible for the web, and also how your users interact with that design. And that's where the JavaScript comes into play. You really need to know how the interaction is going to work. You don't really have to know much about the back-end code, which is the PHP. That's the code that runs on the server, or Apache, the server that actually serves the pages. You don't really need to know a whole lot of that, but it requires design skill, and that's something I feel is really hard to teach, if not impossible. It's one of those things that's almost a talent. So front end, this is what I do. Requires deep knowledge of CSS and JavaScript. It's my job to take the Photoshop files and create a web page out of that, or take a page of data that I've gotten from a backend developer and make that look decent and style it. One thing about being a front-end developer is you constantly got to stay on your toes. As browsers come out with new versions and technologies evolve, if you stick to your ways, what you first learned or whatever, you're going to be outdated really quick. Luckily, I like to learn, so it's not a big deal for me. Backend. Backend tends to be most likely to require a degree, but that's not saying that everything does require a degree. Intense computer science study. The one reason I don't claim to be a back-end developer as much as front end is it really requires some knowledge of actual like programming design patterns. And you know what? You could talk to that a little bit, couldn't you, Tony?
I don't know anything.
Tony's our director of development. Can you say anything about that? Anything about back-end programming methodologies? Knowing computer science?
It's great. It's really fun.
All right.
What's the question?
I was talking about how back-end people require a little more foundation in their technical knowledge. But, they don't have to know much about design or CSS. Their job is to make it work. who cares what it looks like? Site builder. This is something that's come into play recently with the advent of content management systems. And I'll talk about that really briefly. A content management system is something that it's a framework of back-end code that uses things like templates that allows your end user to go and edit something. So let's go to metaltoad.com. We'll get much more into this. Okay, I'm already logged in. And you'll see I have a little description of me, a picture. I can go to edit here. I can change my password, blah, 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 pictures, change my text right here. So what's allowing this is a content management system that allows your end user to edit their own sites without you being involved. So a site builder is somebody who uses those frameworks to build a website. These CMSs start off fairly simple. They have things like add content, add a page, add images, blah, blah, blah. But you can download other modules and expand on those content management systems to give your site more functionality. And a site builder is somebody who, knows a little bit of CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of PHP. They know a little bit of everything. But really, they use the GUI, that's GUI, stands for Graphical User Interface. They use the GUI of this content management system, CMS, to put the sites together. I mean, you can get a long ways these days with content management systems and never touch a lick of code. Yeah?
Is Dreamweaver a CMS?
Dreamweaver is a WYSIWYG editor, and we actually we record a podcast every week, and this is something we talked about. WYSIWYG is something that's kind of an unattainable goal at this point. Basically, you can use Dreamweaver to lay out elements and stuff, and if you're doing something really simple, it might turn out exactly how you want it. But when you start to get into complex stuff, you need to understand what the code's doing underneath rather than just throwing abstracted references from Dreamweaver on the page. You can't just say database connection here, data records here. Maybe you can, but especially with HTML, if you start mucking with that structure and getting too much stuff going on, you're going to have styles conflicting with each other, elements affecting the layout. So that's why when you deal with developers these days, almost all of them use a text editor to look at it, and then we test in the browser. So Dreamweaver is a WYSIWYG editor, and it may have its place. It doesn't necessarily have its place in what we're trying to do. You may find it's a tool that works well for you if you can afford the $400. I used it for a long time, but I would use it kind of as a quick, okay, this is what I'm looking at, but I'd switch back to the text to really solve problems. So yeah, Dreamweaver is more of a tool than a CMS. Does that make sense?
Starting to.
Yeah, there are some CMSs that integrate with Dreamweaver so that you can edit your page in Dreamweaver and it automatically gets published, but we're probably not going to touch on any of that. Really quick, we're going to talk about the basics of how a page is served. So when you enter an address into your browser and you hit enter, it goes out to some main servers. They're called DNS servers, and these are the servers that are maintained by companies like GoDaddy. Other big internet service providers have DNS servers. You can actually set up your own DNS server if you want, but and those DNS servers, which stands for domain name servers, yeah.
Ooh, so that's for DNS servers. It's just DNS. That's like ATM machine.
Totally. So these DNS things basically say, oh, hey, that address you're looking for, metaltoad.com, that actually is at this location, and that location is an IP address. What's IP stand for? Anybody? All right. So the name server basically says metaltoad.com equals this IP 173.5.65. 41. It's 4 series of numbers separated by dots. So that sends it to the actual, that's how your box is addressed, your server is addressed. So it sends that request, forwards it on to your server. Your server then, I'm sorry, on the right port. I'm going to kind of glaze over ports because you don't really need to know about it right now. Essentially, it's just a doorway on your server.
You want to pull up in a browser and just show a name and then do like a ping or something that'll show the name conversion and then, or an NS lookup. And then,
There's a saying, what's the saying? The cobbler's children have no shoes. This is my website. It sucks because I don't have time to work on it.
just put up there, I'm busy working.
It's boilerplate, man. It's boilerplate.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad I added there's a dashed outline so it makes it look like something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one good analogy though is if you want to think of the IP address, it's almost like a telephone number, except that would be really hard to remember for all these websites. So the domain names are just like a shortcut that Backflip Digital is actually that big number, but you don't have to remember that. You just put that in and the domain name servers take care of it for you.
Oh, wait. I set up my server to not respond to pings. God damn it.
173.
So
Oh, it's right there. Yeah.
Excuse me. So then, like, if so say if you knew like the IP address of like that website, could you just type that into your browser and then
Absolutely.
it would go? Okay.
In the old days, yes, although now you can actually have 2 domains or multiple domains on the same IP. And so by using the domain,
Google.
it sends an extra protocol that tells it which site to show.
He's explaining it. I have my server set up to serve multiple addresses. So going just to the IP address won't give you anything because I've been kind of battling some hackers.
So yeah, it kinda
They've been
depends.
winning.
Depends on how you set up your server.
Who would,
Yeah.
why?
Why would somebody hack?
Well, why would
Spam.
They,
To send spam. Those goddamn spammers.
So, but now there are private DNS servers that are being implemented by cable companies and such to send people to secure servers. On the one hand, to protect them from hacked sites, and on the other hand, to maybe direct them to sites that they are preferred.
Sure.
That they prefer.
So once your request actually gets to your machine, it gets through the right doorway, you then have your server software, and that's what Apache is. And Apache basically says you're looking for this path on this machine, and you can configure Apache lots of different ways to point to different directories, but basically it says this request matches this folder on your server. So serve it out of that. PHP, as we talked about, is the back-end programming language. So when I pull up danlin.com or Backflip Digital, they actually both point to the same thing. We're going to fix that in this class, by the way. Yours is way down the line because yours is complicated. Basically, it goes here, and since I didn't specify anything, it says give me the base document, the index document of this website in this folder. And my PHP code says, okay, we need to serve up the page he's looking for. So it will go to the database. All this content is stored in a database. It goes and queries the database. It says, give me all the content for this basic index page. And it pulls back that content, inserts it into the right HTML. It puts, this text into an element that holds it, hopefully with something descriptive. Field type text with summary. So it puts it into this box and constructs this HTML. It's actually pretty rare these days that you write HTML. Most of the time it's a framework or a content management system writing that HTML for you. So
is that what Drupal does?
that is exactly what Drupal does. Drupal is a content management system. So the PHP then builds our HTML and it sends this page back to the browser. Your browser gets this HTML, and all browsers have their own CSS rendering and JavaScript engines to deal with CSS and JavaScript. So the browser sees that CSS and says, okay, I need to style the HTML that I've been giving with these style rules. It also takes the JavaScript and interprets those rules so that, God, this site's so lame. I don't have any JavaScript on there, do I? Let's go to Metaltoad. It tells the browser, this is how I need you to react to things. So there's an onload event, to really oversimplify this. There's an onload event on this page that says, take all these images, layer them on top of each other, and every 5 seconds or so, switch it to the next one. And that's essentially the basics of how a page is served. There's a lot of technologies here, like I know how to enter a DNS name on a ISP, and that's about it. I don't know a whole lot about how the internals of that actually work, because I don't really need to. It's abstracted for a reason. Same thing with IP and ports. Like, over the years, I know a lot about how we got there, why we use ports, but it's not information I really needed to know right off the bat. Apache, same thing. I run a generic Apache installation for a long time that just did what I needed to do. Nowadays, I know how to customize it so I can run, multiple sites off the same IP address and stuff like that. But again, not something you really need to know offhand. PHP, that's where we start getting into stuff we're talking about here. So PHP is the backend, HTML gets generated, and the CSS describes what it looks like, and the JavaScript describes how it acts. Wow, that sounded pretty succinct there.
That was actually pretty clean.
Yeah, I'm proud of that.
Could you go to a site that had something a little bit more than maybe your site or something and sort of walk through that just like briefly?
Yeah. You guys feel like Metaltoad's a good example for that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or you could go to something that isn't Drupal based. Like something that's more like, go to aaroninstance.info. Go to my crappy portfolio. It's a single page HTML with some JavaScript and lots of CSS. And forbidden.
Did I spell your name wrong?
No, apparently it's returning a 4.
Yeah, my page doesn't look so bad anymore, does it, Aaron?
I haven't thought about it. It's hard to think.
Yeah, like I said, the cobbler's children have no shoes. It's always hardest to work on your own stuff. So let's find another place to go to.
Mine's incredibly basic.
Let's do it.
Page, squidhaven.com. Incredibly basic, but it is very... So that's it. That's the whole thing. View source on it.
Perfect. All right, so this is this is about as basic as it gets. All right, so let's break this up so we can see this. This is a great example. Well, oh, you know what? Hold on. Do the thing. God damn it. Ah, there we go.
What are those little?
I forgot my key combinations.
And this is served up by PHP, even though it's not really doing anything.
Little overkill there, huh?
Those little things.
This is what I had.
Those things that you're like playing with up top. Is that like something you downloaded to your?
These are all part of my operating system, and these are something I'll actually talk about in a future class. These are just multiple different tools that I use. So that's just a simple tool that puts a window on the left and a window on the right.
Is that only a Mac thing, or
this is only a Mac thing, yeah.
Okay.
So let's take a look at this basic structure of an HTML site. We have a doc type up top, and the reason we have a doc type is because Internet Explorer sucks. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. Eventually, Internet Explorer had so many different versions that worked differently that you actually had to tell Internet Explorer which rendering engine to use to display your page. Really painful. Thankfully, doctype HTML5 is pretty standard these days, and Internet Explorer 9 and up are going to respect that pretty well. Then you have your basic HTML tag. This essentially wraps everything. You have your open tag, which has no slash in it, and your close tag, which has that slash in it. This wraps everything in your HTML page. You should never have more than one set of HTML tags. That's a big red flag. Same thing with head and body. Every page has a head. Every page has a body. In the head, you find stuff that's kind of not really displayed to the user in the normal manner. Like title is actually what goes up here. Style sheet is just a link to all those styles we have. And I might as well open that too. Oh, cool. I'm going to come back to this. So this says I'm going to use these styles to style this content. In fact, if I were to inspect this code and remove that style sheet, come on, tell me you're going to do it. Yeah. Bam! That's what the page looks like without any styling.
So that's removing all CSS.
All CSS. So now you just see this image and this text. It's really the CSS that makes it look nice and put it in this little gradient. So then we have a body and an extraneous div.
I was going to put other stuff in there.
So this div is just wrapping some other content, and we see a section. Div, I believe, just stands for division. It's really one of the simplest ways to designate a section of content. With HTML5, the latest HTML specification, there's much more descriptive tags that you can use, things like article, navigation, aside, things like that make reading code a lot more easier than just seeing a shit ton of divs everywhere.
Div doesn't display anything by itself, but
right.
It contains the things that you put in it. So if you had three sections in it, but you wanted to move them to the right 25 pixels, you could do that all at once by referring to the div.
Right. You can style divs themselves too. Yeah. So here we have a section, and this section is, we'll go down here so it actually highlights it in our browser. There's that div we were talking about. There's the section. If we open that up, we see the image, and we see the text. So essentially, let's break down this tag here. IMG is an image tag. SRC stands for source. You're telling it where on your server it can find that image. And the alt text is what happens, is what people see if they don't have images enabled. That might sound silly, but there's a lot of blind people in the world. And let's actually
Wait. So you said that's what they'll see if they don't have images enabled, but if they're blind, then why would they see it?
Because they use screen readers that read the text to them.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, good question.
Well, originally in you didn't have time to load all the images.
Yeah, I don't know. That's ancient.
Yeah.
But maybe.
All it said was image.
Yeah, that's right. When you were waiting for the image to load, it would display the alt text while it came in line by line by line.
To some degree, search engines will look at that as well.
Yeah.
Though, they don't really weight it very high, but
Right. That's a good point. If you have a giant picture of your product on your page and that's all there is, you might want some text somewhere in there to tell other computers what's actually going on there. Computers don't look at images. So we have this div here, and you see we have some styling here on the right. These styles are being displayed in these handy little dev tools for you, but they're coming from this page. And you can see we have some styles on the generic body. We're saying it doesn't have a margin, it doesn't have any padding, it's using a body background. It's telling that background to repeat along the x-axis. So it's like this, and it repeats that way. And it also gives it a background color. We'll talk about hexadecimal colors in a little bit. Just know that there are plenty of tools to figure that out for you. You don't have to know what that means. I don't know what color that equates to just looking at it. Yeah, exactly. I've been doing it. I have a little thing here, this little app called Colors. specifically just for going and grabbing, grabbing a color from somewhere.
There's even a couple of handy plugins for Firefox and Chrome for
One
that
sec.
too.
So I can go over here, get a yellow, copy it. So you don't have to know that thing.
Change the background to yellow real quick.
Okay. Let's go to the body. Change it to that thing I just copied. Wah, wah. So the background image is actually covering up that color.
Yeah, you would only see that if it was a really big screen.
Is that a solid color background image?
It's a subtle gradient. If you run a large monitor,
Ah, okay, cool.
then the color would pick up where the image ends.
Cool. So then we look at body div. We've got some simple styling here. What's up?
I was just wondering, has nobody made something to where it'll go through and see if there's anything wrong with your HTML coding, like if you're missing, like you said earlier, like a quotation mark? Or
There are plenty of things that do that. In fact, my text editor includes a bunch of that stuff. So if I try to see, it's showing me where this bracket started. Start from this bracket, end at this bracket. If I were to type in some code that looked wrong, it highlights that in a white color in this theme. No, let me switch this to something that's a little more easier for people.
Most of them will have a menu option that when you're done too, we'll just go through and list all the errors.
Yeah.
And there's websites you can
So
just paste into a little bit.
So this makes it stick out in white if it's an error.
Then why do you have those two menu callback things in white?
Because the constants for this theme are colored white. If you were to switch to another theme, it's entirely possible those would be a different color.
Okay, yeah.
I like... What's the one I use? Oh yeah, Monakai. Yep. So... And... let's see, I think it's really apparent in the CSS files too. Let's look there.
These color schemes are totally dependent on whatever tool you decide to use.
So
Anyone worth their salt will have some form of color.
if I were to just type in random stuff, it just looks wrong, it sticks out from the rest of the thing. It's not a proper declaration. So yeah, and in addition to that, there's also tools that will go through and say there's a program called CSS Tidy that will go through your CSS and tell you if you have any errors. But we're going to use preprocessors, so that's not going to come up for you guys. You don't know what that is. All right, so we were at div. We're telling it to span the width of the page, 100%. It's 104 pixels. There's a background image that contains that gradient. If we were to change this no repeat, or this repeat to no repeat, you would see that it's just a simple image there. But we have it repeating all the way across because that looks better.
And you do that because a smaller image is faster than a big one.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, unless there's some changes here I'm not seeing, this could be 1 pixel wide and be stretched the entire way across.
Yep.
Really saving file space. So he's also got it set to be positioned absolutely, which means it doesn't flow like, say you're working in a Word document and you put something here, it's going to show up here. When you position something absolutely, it breaks out of those bounds, and you say from whatever it's relative, in this case the body, 30% from the top. So it's just positioned absolutely. Let's see if there's some section stuff. Yeah, there's a little bit of a margin. The way this goes is top, right, bottom, left. So he's got a left of 15% and a top of 6. If we were to change this 6, this would go up a little. Now it's right at the top. He's given it a little bit of margin there. We can change this to have it go over a little more. The percentage is neat because if we go larger, it's in a relative place to the width of the window. And I know a lot of this is going to be a little over your heads at first, but it all makes sense eventually. He's telling it what font to use here, Arial. And this is interesting. You can list fonts by commas, and what this is saying is if this computer doesn't have Arial, use Helvetica. If it doesn't have Helvetica or Arial, use the default sans serif font for the machine. Also, he specifies font size, and we could change that if we wanted. So, great example, Tom. This is truly rad. And then, you know, he has some styling on the image itself.
Maybe someday there will be more to it. Someday.
So there's a couple different kinds of display. There's inline and block. Inline essentially means that everything lines up next to each other. If you say block, it kind of creates its own break to the next line. But that's all stuff we'll cover more in depth later.
So as you're changing these things, do they maintain, or do you have to hit like save or something?
Right now, I'm looking at my I'm looking at this code, and it's been sent to my computer. So anything I modify here is only modified right there. Like I can't even really necessarily save what I've done here. A lot of times, what I'll do is I'll be working on a project. Say they want me to come in and make this text look a little different. I'll come in and I'll add a rule here. We'll add a style of italic. And we'll make it all uppercase by using text transform uppercase. So I'll play around in here. I'll mess with the font sizes. I'll do this. And eventually I'll say, okay, this is cool. Copy. Go back to my text editor. Paste it. So these are just tools to mess with stuff you're looking at.
Feedback.
Yeah, instant feedback. That's a great way to put it. These tools are so helpful that there are people who actually don't even design in Photoshop anymore. They just go to the browser and start adding elements and styling them. So
You would have to be able to send that to the server for this page.
Right.
In order to actually make a change that would make a difference.
Exactly. I'd have to save it to my text file here, and then my text file would have to go back to that server and replace the file that's there. Does that make sense? Cool. So let me go back to my notes here. Again, great example, Tom. That's perfect. All right, we talked about head, doc type, meta tags. Meta tags can be things like descriptions. You'll see instead of title, it would say meta, and it would say type equals description. And within that tag, you would give it a description. That would show up possibly in some search engines. You can also do things like meta keywords. Those aren't really used anymore, but you can do it if you want. You can do things like there's a meta refresh. So you set a refresh for every 5 seconds the page refreshes, which would be really annoying. Don't do that. So yeah, there's different meta tags. We'll get more in depth on some of these things later as we go through some more complex code. And then we saw the link to the CSS, and there was also a little bit of JavaScript in here, wasn't there?
Probably not.
That's inserted by.
Oh, dope. That's mine. Huh. Never mind.
Yeah,
Moving right along.
Been at the top anyway.
I actually have a little tool, this thing here, that inserts some code into every page so that when I change the window size, it shows me the window size and stuff like that. So that's why we're seeing that there. All right, where are we at here? And then we talked about title, description. Normally, pages are divided up in a pretty kind of standard way. You don't have to do this at all, but it's just kind of a way that things have evolved. We have a header up here, and a header includes the logo. A lot of times on sites, let's see, Fairnet.com. That's another one we just finished. on fairnet.com. This has more of a classical header up top, logo, some links that are useful, and then your navigation. Navigation, logo, search, stuff like that. You'll see search over here in the header. Those are just some common items. Then you have, your main content. Content. And then most fully fleshed out pages and sites have a footer of some sort. This has a footer that just has some generic links and the schedule of what's on tonight. So that's kind of the basic structure of an HTML page and how it gets served. Anybody have any questions? No way. No, you guys all got all that?
I still have a question.
Sure.
about the server.
Uh-huh.
You go to your page, you had to FTP that up to some place to get it to be on the web.
Mm-hmm.
So you FTP'd it up to whatever service you're paying for that domain name, right?
Kind of. You pay to register a domain name with the DNS servers. You say, I want this domain name. I'll tell you where it goes. You then tell that domain name company, which IP to send it to.
Which server?
Yeah, which server to send that to. So then you also have now your server. A lot of times these server and domain name companies are similar or the same company, like GoDaddy, which is where I think causes a little confusion for you. I have a server sitting over here in it's a company called Verpus. I think my server's in Kansas or something, and I have a GoDaddy domain name that points to my server there. So the request comes in, the DNS servers say, oh, GoDaddy knows where that's at, sends it to the server. The server creates that page, sends it back to the browser. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the server side, you've identified that this is going to be a Drupal site, or you've identified that how the page is going to be built.
Yep.
And that server will or will not have agreed to serve it in a Drupal way.
Exactly. It'll either say, I couldn't find what you're looking for, or yes, I have the instructions. I know what you're looking for. Here's what it is.
So all of that is not necessarily embedded just in the code.
No. There's what we call the stack. So you have Apache. Apache takes the requests and serves the right stuff. Apache says, hey, I got this request. PHP, what are you going to do with it? PHP says, oh, I'm going to do this. Grab some data out of the database, shove it in here. Here, give them this page. Apache says, here's your page. Does that make sense?
When you get a server, usually they'll come at
Not a good choice.
We run...
because of speed and issues.
We do local development, which means we're running a server on our machine.
copy of the whole stack. Like
So
Drupal runs on here, it's fast.
if I go to puppetlabs.danmac.com, I've configured my machine so it knows not to go out to the internet, but just goes to my local Apache server that I've set up here and serves my page. If I edit something on my machine, edit some of this code on my machine, it would instantly be updated here. I wouldn't have to send it anywhere because I'm running the server there. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So here's just a super quick and dirty drawing. And I'm just going to go ahead and label some of these things. So we have browser. The browser sends a request to a DNS server. God, why do I have to keep clicking on the goddamn button? I know what I want to do. Sends it to DNS. DNS then sends it to your server. Oh, Visio.
Oh, really? Visio?
Google's version, yep. Then it goes to, so let's label this server. Server, here's something that might be confusing you a little. Server both denotes the machine that you're hitting and the Apache software that's actually serving the document. So there is a little confusion there.
Software and hardware
Correct.
as a combination.
Yep.
Sometimes if you think of the hardware as like the host versus the server as the software.
Oh.
Sometimes, I mean, the words do get mingled a lot. But.
So it sends it from Apache, sends the request to PHP. PHP says, okay, I need some stuff from the database, gets the stuff back from the database, serves this document, and actually, sorry, it goes back through the server. That makes more sense. Creates the document, sends it back to the server, which then sends it back to the browser. Woo! Network diagram in 2 minutes. Anyway, I think we've covered plenty for tonight. I'm seeing some glazed eyeballs, so I think we should call it a night. Everybody, please join the Google Plus and join the community. We'll do.
Do they know how to find it on Google Plus? Is there Facebook?
Yes, I did link to it from Facebook. I linked to my profile, so just add me, and then you should be able to find the university. Of course, any questions, give me a call. I've got some cards for the few folks who don't know me. If you have any suggestions, any questions, anything like that, this isn't the standard classroom. I'm here to help